Today we're going to use Saltwash. So this is new to Sentimental Salvage and Design, but it's been out for a long time. It's new to me. I've been using it, I've been practicing with it, but I'm just going to show you guys how to use it. There's a lot of different applications for it, a lot of different techniques. There's a whole bunch of videos also on how to use it. So this is just going to be one. So this is DIY paint, gypsy green. This is a really nice, mossy, beautiful green. So there's gypsy green in there. And I don't measure. I just kind of eyeball. So I'm just going to put one scoop in there. And we're going to see how what kind of texture. You always want to use Saltwash in your base paint, whether that's the color or just your base coat. So that's super thick. We don't want it that thick. So I'm just going to add paint. The good thing about Saltwash too is that it doesn't change the color of your paint at all. And it dries quicker. I don't know if that's the salt thing or what, but it dries fast. Faster than normal when you add thickening agents to your paint. So depending on how much texture you want, it's kind of how much Saltwash you're going to add to your paint. I'm wanting quite a bit, so I want this pretty thick. Okay. So I'm just going to grab, this is just a Klingon. Another thing I should mention is if you want to use just kind of old chip brushes, that's fine too. If you're going to be using your good brushes, like your Klingon or whatever brushes, you just don't want to leave it in there. It's not good for your bristles. So don't leave your brushes neglected for too long. You want to wash it out really good. So I'm just kind of stippling it on here. Leaving some pretty good peaks. I'm going to be distressing back to this layer. So I'm just kind of putting it on in random spots. just gonna add a little bit of water in here just to be able to wet my brush a little bit. And then I'm just going to really lightly brush over this to push down some of those peaks, those really high points, but leave the texture. I just want to smush down some of those. All right, now we're just gonna let this dry. I'm gonna go put my brush in water and we'll be back. Okay, so this is all dry. I'm just gonna bring it up to show you the texture that's on there. So that's the base coat. And now I'm gonna paint over the whole thing with, I'm debating on White Swan or crinoline. I think I'm gonna go with crinoline because it's like a creamier white. So same thing, this is DIY paint. And I'm going to water it down just a little bit because DIY paint is so thick. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water and we'll mix that up. Okay. So now I'm just going to grab a different brush and then we're just going to paint right over top. And I am going to be distressing through, so this doesn't have to be perfect. But I do want there to be pretty decent coverage here. I did not make enough paint. A little bit too much water. Okay. So we've got pretty good coverage over the whole thing. Now this has to dry completely again. So we'll be back when it's dry. Okay, so this is all dry and you can still see all of that yummy texture. And now we're going to sand it, which is going to be messy, but... And I'm going to bring that green through. Okay, I am just going to get rid of this dust now. Okay, so you can see where you've got that, where you can see the green underneath. And it's got all this amazing texture. Now, if you want a little bit more of the wood peeking through, I'm just going to grab I've got a couple random scraper tools, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a spritz of water. We're just going to let that sit there for a while and work its magic. And then with the scraper, you can get a little bit more of a different look. This would only work, this whole water bit will only work if you used DIY paint, because you can reactivate that with the water. Other paint like Fusion, you're not going to be able to, once that dries, you're not going to be able to reactivate that. I'm just kind of scraping in random areas. There we go. So now this sign has this really old, weathered, kind of boatish, boat look feel to it. And you can add some stamps or anything there to add a little bit more, but this is a really good base. So what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to give it a clear coat with Big Top, and then I can either stamp or put transfers on. Okay, so this is all dry, and I've decided I want to put this piece of the Melange transfer, or sorry, paint inlay on this sign. But as you can see, the rooster is kind of just tall enough himself. So I'm going to deconstruct this inlay. Because like the transfers, your image is your image. The blank space is just that. It's just blank space. So I'm just going to cut around what I want. Well, I'm going to use the whole thing, but this is going to be the trickier part. Just put that aside. See, and this part I'm going to put on the sides like that. I think that's going to work out well. But I have to come up with where to cut. I don't want to miss out on these roses and their leaves. I know there's a bit of the rose in there, but I'm just going to, there's a little bit in there, I'm just going to let that be. So now he can stand kind of in the middle. And this, I think I'm going to put, oh, there's some text down here that I don't want. Cut that out, and I think this one will go on that side, and we'll put this one on this side. Maybe I'll put that little, who knows? Okay, so let's work with the side first. And how I'm going to apply this is I am going to use clear patina. So if you remember from my other videos, I have mentioned that the paint inlays were designed to be used with a chalk style paint. But I've already got my base going on here, which I really, really like. So I don't want to have to paint this again to put an inlay on. So I'm going to use DIY's clear patina, which I know works. I've used it many times with the inlays. So that's what I'm going to do. So I just grab, I'm gonna just eyeball here to see how far I have to, kind of paint out. Okay. So remember, your inlay needs the wet paint to set into. So you want to make sure you're giving it a decent coat. Because if it's not thick enough, your inlay you won't get as nice of a result. And then I'm just going to take that inlay and now I'm going to rub it into the wet paint. And let's use one of these to really kind of smush it in there. You got to be careful because you don't want to tear your paper, but you really want that inlay to work down into that paint. So using this or even a piece of saran wrap like you do with decoupage paper, it just helps alleviate some of the friction. And then you take your mister or just a wet cloth and soak that backing paper. And I'm just going to use a wet wipe because we apparently have a water main break in town, so I have no water. No water here at the store. So I'm just going to use this wet wipe to really work this inlay down. Now see this little tip of that leaf? I kind of want that to be able to go into that crack a little bit. I don't think that's gonna work. Okay, so that has to dry. And while that's doing that, I'm going to work on the other side. Same process. We're using the liquid patina. Just having no no water. I'm just going to take off some of this extra liquid patina that I've got here. There. Okay. Now on this one, I'm going to show you just with a balled up piece of saran wrap. Same kind of idea as I used with the other tool on the other side. It's just alleviating friction so you don't tear your paper. And it helps you really get it in there. You can use a brayer as well. Okay, same thing here. I'm gonna mist this with water. And come back with the baby wipe and really push it down. And now this guy. Okay, more clear patina. Okay. I think he looks pretty straight. Back with my saran wrap. These transfers, or I keep wanting to call it a transfer. These inlays can be a little intimidating for people because they're new, they're completely different application. But once you get the hang of them, once you experiment with them a little bit, you realize that they're not that difficult. They're a little more, I'd say, time consuming than a transfer, only because you're waiting for your drying time, whereas a transfer, you're applying it and there it is, good. But they work really, really well. Okay, I wanna, with this guy, I'm just slicing here in between the boards. And this is a little bit nerve-wracking because the paper is wet and all that. But I want to make sure that I get a really good impression. So I want to kind of smush that down into that crack. There we go. Okay. Same thing, we're gonna wet this. And what this part does is this is what releases the paint of the inlay itself off the backing paper and into that wet paint. So it's an important step. A step that gets repeated once this all dries. So now, in my experience, this has to be really, really dry. If you don't let this all dry completely and thoroughly, when you re-dampen your inlay backing and you try to pull it off too early, what happens is you can start pulling off your base paint. And that happens because of how we've done this. Got a little chunk of... When you're working strictly with paint and you've painted it and you're applying your inlay right into your paint, that's not as big of an issue. What is causing the issue here is that I have these multiple layers of paint underneath and I'm using the clear patina to apply the inlay. So if you go back, I'll link it in the comments, the Queen of the Nile paint inlay project that I did it on a big canvas, and I messed up on that one and had to redo the whole thing because I was impatient and I didn't let it dry completely. It felt dry, but all of those layers of paint underneath were not dry. So that causes a problem. So you really want to make sure that it's dry before you start taking that apart. So I'll be back when this baby is dry. Okay, so we're all dry, and I'm going to zoom you in a little bit so that's too much, so you can see a little bit better. And we're gonna start over here. And now what we do is we mist this again, because now we're wanting to release this paper off our project. And I still have no water. We have a water break in town, so, and I'm going to, whoops, make sure this is really damp. And then you gently pull back on this backing paper, leaving your inlay behind. I'm just going to put that aside to dry because I should be able to use it again. I've got little bits of paper here. There we go. Look at that. And that's right into the paint. And it gives you that nice little antique-y kind of distressed look. I want to move this over here. Let's do this side. same process. We're gonna get this good and wet. Let's let that sit for a couple seconds. Basically, I'm helping to push that inlay in, but I'm also dabbing off any excess water. Gently pull. This looks perfect over the texture and everything of the Saltwash finish that I put on here. Perfect. Okay, Mr. Rooster. My water bottle's getting kind of low. Oh, look at his handsome little face. Oops. Remember, I cut these in strips. Oh, that's like stuck in there. Oh, this one's just tearing on me. There we go. Cutting it in those little grooves has made it a little bit more difficult to get out of there now. There we go. Look at how handsome. Now this is, remember, this is a chalk style paint that has gone into making these inlays. So you don't want to just come along with a clear coat and brush it over here. Because if you overbrush at all, you are going to end up smearing your inlay. So if I have some mixed up, which I do, so now I'm just going to tilt this up a little bit just so that I can, and we're going to give it a spritz. And that way, you're not smearing it. So you're gonna do that once. We're gonna let that dry, and then I'll come back and I'll do it another time. And then we'll be able to brush over a top coat safely without it smearing. So I'm gonna let this dry. Okay, so I gave that a quick dry with a heat tool, and now we're gonna do our second coat with our little spritzer. These little bottles, I just get them at the dollar store. You don't have to get anything fancy. They work perfectly fine. And now we're gonna dry this again. Oh, I've got a couple big splatters here. I'm going to dry this again with my heat tool, and then we'll come back and we will brush on a top coat. Okay, so now we're ready to brush on a clear coat. So I'm just going to use, I've already got, this is the clear patina that we used earlier, and I'm just going to use it as an all over clear coat. And now it's safe to brush over because we've done our 2 clear coats with the spray bottle. I'm still not gonna overwork it. Basically, this coat is just to give it some consistency in texture from where the inlays were. And just that little extra bit of protection. Just enough. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay, one more buzz with the heat tool and it'll be all done. So there you have it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. A little bit of paint, some Saltwash for texture, and an IOD paint inlay. This is from the Melange paint inlay, brand new, a couple weeks ago. And you have all this yummy, yummy texture and an adorable little rooster. Worked out perfect. A quick, easy project. Thanks for watching.